Greetings, my name is Slight, and today we are going to do a short OverExplain video on a couple strategies that I used to improve at Gunfire Reborn. When I started playing Gunfire Reborn, back when this number was much lower, I had never played an FPS before in my whole life, and now it is one of my favorite games. I'd say I'm still not the best at FPS, and my aim is probably one of my weakest areas in Gunfire Reborn. That being said, I try to leverage a large amount of knowledge to be effective in the game. So what I'd like to talk about today is some practical things that you can do as a player that's going to help you improve quickly and probably for the right reasons. I would say that the thing that I want to mention first before we get into the video is, or into some of the other specific things that I'd like to suggest, is that your mentality is probably the most important thing if you're trying to improve. I used to be a mid-skill competitive Dota player back in Dota 1, and what you would notice between skill levels of players is that when you took like an average player and then someone who was above average, the difference between those two people, let's actually go even lower. Let's take a low skill player to an average player. Oftentimes the difference between these two people was like 3 large things. Okay, like the weak player didn't would play heroes that they didn't know, or would have really bad positioning, or didn't know what items to buy. All right, and the average player wouldn't be better at anything else but those 3 things, and that was a massive increase. They played heroes they knew, they had a little bit better sense of where they should be at certain times in the game, and the other thing I said, they do all those things. So what you see as we gain in skill and as the challenge that we're trying to meet gets higher and higher is that there are less really big problems with our play, and it starts to get more granular. So from an average player to a pretty good player, above average player, you might find one big thing, maybe even 2 big things, but also 15 medium size or small things. All right, it's a significant change. We can't just say you need to do these 3 things anymore. It's okay, yeah, you needed what are you doing there? That thing you should fix. That's one big thing. And then here's a little thing, another little thing, another little thing, another little thing. And these things add up. And so what you see at the top level in Dota especially is the difference between a mid-skill competitive player and a high-skill competitive player is 2,000 little things. Not 2,000, but maybe 500. Actually, truly, maybe 2,000. I mean, that is not unreasonable. It may even be more than that. The difference is a whole huge amount of tiny little things that add up to a significant advantage. And you see this in work, too. If you've ever worked with someone who's really good at their job, it's often not that they do 1 or 2 things better. If that was the case, then we would see what they were doing, and then we'd be like, oh yeah, I'll just do those things now. But oftentimes what we see is we see them do one thing well, and we emulate that, but that turns out to be 1 of 500 things that they do well. They're just always learning these little things, and they're sort of adding them together. So when we're trying to improve, we need to remember that. So if we are in normal and struggling with normal, that would indicate to me that I have a couple major things that I need to fix, but not many of them. But if I'm stuck on R6 and I need to get to R7, well, there might be 50 things that it requires for me to really consistently get into R7, and it might be 75 things to get to R8. And these 75 things are not massive. It's learning, oh, that is good here. Oh, these 2 things combo together. Oh, that is really powerful if I can find it with this. These little things add up, and then every run you've got 75 more options available to you, and that adds up. So I think I've made my point. So when we are trying to get from elite to nightmare, or nightmare to reincarnation, there's a couple key things that I think we can address. And I think this video will be mostly about that. I think most of the content that I make is more about that upper end. It's these small details that really add up to, so like I'm trying to give you those details. I'm trying to show you a build that you can actually get your hands dirty with, and that will actually expand your understanding of the game. And that's a smaller understanding increase as far as its scope. But let's dial it back. Let's talk about some of the basics. So I'd say that the main basics of Gunfire Reborn is understanding what makes good damage. Okay, if you can generally do good damage, the game's going to be a lot easier for you. And that we can get really technical with that, but we don't need to. So okay, that's number one. It's damage. Number two is movement is incredibly important, and probably the number one issue for most players. So if you improve nothing else, my first thing that I'm going to show you is about movement. So we're going to do that. I'm probably going to do movement first, yeah. And then the other thing, and your aim, I would say, is the third thing. We'll see if I talk more than that, but I think that should cover the basics. And I'm going to give you some tools right now that are going to help you get through Elite Nightmare into Reincarnation 1 and give you a strong foundation so that you can start learning more specific information, which will enable you to get higher. One thing to keep in mind is that in general, this applies in life or in game. Whenever you're trying to challenge yourself and improve, the best mentality is that, and the most effective mentality is one where you never get there. Okay, you're always in beta. All right, you're always learning. You never achieve a point where you have become the full-fledged version of yourself, even about a specific thing. And even me now, as you can see, playing 388 hours of this game, I have all failures here, okay? And that's because I'm challenging myself and pushing myself to grow. I am not there. I haven't made it. And I will never think that I have. And that mentality is so important because I never need to feel like I am like the best at this game. I don't need that. Really what I want is to improve. And so let's improve. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is a way to significantly increase your ability to maneuver in the game. All right, and what we're going to do, oh Nightmare, there's no little guy right there. What we're going to do is, let's grab something. Ooh, let's make it hard on ourselves. We're going to grab a slow weapon here. So this is what you do, okay? This is a challenge. Your goal is to enter each room and not kill anyone for about 1 minute every single room, okay? And so you have to run around, and you can be kind of, clever with how you do this. But instead of freaking out, you're just going to dodge over and over and over again. And, that's been a minute, so I'll kill these people. And I'm kind of hampering myself by using a slow weapon here. Okay, I move on to the next room. And now I'm going to let the enemy spawn. And then I'm just going to spend 1 minute literally not fighting them. Just staying safe and letting this minute wear out. And I can actually watch the timer here. So I know I came in at like 40 seconds. So, very easy for me to just stay healthy, stay in a good spot. I'm actually out of ammunition. And what this teaches you is how to have movement that keeps you safe. And I would say this is probably the #1 thing that holds people back, is not having movement that actually benefits them. So here, I need to, I'm not going to do 1 minute each time, but I really do strongly suggest that you do it. So now this is a common situation. I'm backed up in a corner. How do I get out of here? All right, I need to time all this well, okay? So now I'm in an okay spot again. I don't know why I'm taking damage. It must have been some kind of bleed effect. All right, so this is the kind of idea, right? So I'm going to kill these guys. And now I can kill them, right? No problem. Okay, don't need this. Don't want to go in there. Actually, we will. We will. So, I'm going to play for just a little bit, and I'm going to get into the angsty desert and show you what this looks like in a bit of a more difficult thing. But the crux of this strategy, the crux of this challenge is to improve your movement, for you to, your goal isn't to stay over here and not aggro the enemies. Like, immediately go in, aggro the enemies, and then literally spend a minute, like, not dying. This is much harder than it seems, and it gets harder and harder the higher difficulty that you do this on. But trust me, this kind of stuff really improves your ability to maneuver in the game, and you'll get a much stronger sense of when you're in threat, when stuff is dangerous, by not just focusing on trying to kill the enemies as fast as possible. I'm intentionally entering in and out of a danger zone with these enemies, and it gives me a much better sense of like when I'm actually in danger. All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna pause. I'll see you in the angsty desert. Actually, I might show you a room before then. We'll see. Okay, we're back. All right, so let's run in here. We've even got a longbowman this time. So this is the perfect time to really focus on learning how to dodge all these types of projectiles. So my goal here is just to let them shoot at me and for me to dodge them. Now let's go to the slow one. All right, so I had super high movement speed, but this is more interesting. So how do I... See, these things just go right past me. No problem. All I need to do is watch for these things. Alright, now we got even more bad guys. And see how even just being in this spot, like I can actually set him up so he can't shoot me. Oh, that didn't work. It worked on this little thing here. Let's see if I can set this guy up so he can't shoot me. Move right here. No problem. And as you can see, these guys are chumps. But sometimes these rooms can feel really dangerous, especially when you don't have a huge amount of experience. Because you start freaking out and you focus more on trying to do damage than just calmly dismantling the amount of projectiles that are coming at you. And so keep this in mind. We're going to get into the angsty desert next. I just wanted to show you one more room, what this whole process looks like. And I promise you, if you do this a couple times, your movement and positioning is going to increase a lot. You're going to find that the game gets significantly easier after doing this. If you're looking for some, just a little thing that you can do, I'll show you this here in just a sec. Laser beam me, dude. I'm trying to show something off. Golem. There he goes. You just jump over it. So that's one of those little things. Yeah, just figured I'd show you. Okay, we are in the angsty desert. I wanted to show you a couple rooms of how this is going to play out. I think that this probably is one of the areas where people struggle the most, but your goal should be to try to get as far as you can in these runs, handicapping yourself with the 1 minute what do you call it, truce, right? So I'm going to do a couple rooms here. This gets a lot harder. My suggestion would be to do a difficulty that's at least one less than one that you can complete. So if you're on normal, you'll be forced to do normal, and that's actually okay, because normal, if you're stuck on normal, you haven't even completed the game yet, doing this a couple times, even getting 20% into the run is going to help significantly. But if you're like stuck on Reincarnation 1, trying to get there, doing some elite runs with this is going to be really helpful. So let's do this. I'm going to switch to my foundry so I have a little bit more room. But the goal is to just go ahead and get in here, right? And see, I'm not afraid. Now, what I'm doing, I need to show you, I think, a little bit more, is I'm like thinking about, I have like a mental picture of how this room looks, right? And I know that there's this big thing in the center. I know that there are these like extra little alcoves, like I can go right here. And so if I'm just moving efficiently through this room, These enemies literally can't do damage to me. And I'm just running in a straight line. I don't have any extra movement speed. Oh, I do have a little bit of movement speed. Hold on. Alright, I had 25% movement speed. Let's get rid of that. See, now I know that this guy's here. And so because he's here, you know, I can kind of stun him the second that he gets in range. And because I'm not freaking out or using my energy orb for an offensive purpose, the second that this bad guy gets too close to me and starts shooting me with his fire, I've got something. Stun him, and now he's no longer a problem. I can get away from him. If you're the dog and you have knockback, your knockback will actually stop him from shooting that fire at you. And so that's another way that you can kind of keep yourself alive. But another thing that's happening here is I'm using all of the terrain to my advantage. There's all these little places that enemy bullets can't hit through that if you're not thinking about it consciously, like even this, you know, this bandit retainer shooting right there, you know, it is a big deal. So I think I've sort of proved my point for this room. Let's go ahead and clear this up. And see, what I just did with that bandit retainer shooting at me was not freak out. It was the same thing that I was doing before. You know, I just keep moving in one clear direction. I hate it when this guy gets up here. So hard to hit. Alright, we did some things. Next room. And I'm going to switch off the sword because that gives me too much move speed. I'm really trying to show you, like, you know, obviously this gets even easier when you have high move speed. But the goal is to just run in here, alright? Okay, and see how I got caught up on that guy? That was actually bad movement. This guy has corrosion, so I actually need to be very careful about how I deal with him. His corrosion is spawning, and I get rid of it. And now I know that happens every like 6 seconds or so. So when I turn around now, should be about to spawn. Maybe not. I think it might be every 10 seconds. And so right here, I walked in a straight line away from the bandit retainers. I knew I could do that because I wasn't hearing them attacking me. So you don't want to, you know, go in straight lines against the bandit retainers when you hear them attacking. Whether that's straight toward them or away from them, it's a really good way to actually take a huge amount of damage. I'm just always doing circles around these bandit retainers and trying to keep a conscious thought process about when this corrosion thing is currently active. So it's a little hard to talk and do this at the same time. So let's... But if you're actually the one doing this and you don't have a video to produce, I strongly suggest you do not do this and you just take the loss. The whole point of this, you know, exercise is to lose some stuff. You know, try not to spend much of your essence. You know, if you die, just, you know, die the first time and let that be enough. The goal is not to waste your essence, so don't do revives unless you're just really enjoying doing this type of exercise. Yeah, I think I made my point. Alright, last one, and then I think we'll move on to the next thing that you can do to help yourself improve. Oh, I wasn't supposed to kill those guys. I just need to run around. I love how much damage your skills do in the lower difficulties. It's so great. Your skills are like absolutely worthless. Oh, only a 2-shot. And so, like, you know, if I'm like not just running around, I actually have all these opportunities to like slow enemies as I see them approaching me and see how enemies are over there. So I actually just want to kind of pass by this guy again. I know he just shot his flamethrower, so it's on cooldown again. So I can just pass by him. And that's something that becomes a second nature, well, especially when you've done these types of exercises over and over again. You just get a sense of what the timings for things are. and you get a sense of how to use like vertical stuff to your advantage too. And see, I see how I turned right there? Now, you might not have thought anything about that, but that's because I heard the bandit retainer start shooting. And because I was running away from the bandit retainer, I knew that I needed to cut a hard right. And that's just using an audio cue to, you know, to great effect. It does help that I have this realm of corrosion, actually, because I'm actually slowing everyone. But I don't think it's doing that much. But as you can see, I've been able to easily keep myself alive, you know, just by good movement. And so now, if I want to take on this room, I can just kill one person really quick, and then I'm moving again, you know? And I'm not playing super well, because I'm talking, but the same ideas apply. So like I can kind of just keep doing this, rinse and repeat, and then just take the damage when I can get it. Alright, now I'm back to running. Now I'm back to running. And if you can learn how to do this, then you can start taking on extremely difficult challenges. See that? I didn't freak out. Easy, right? Easy. I'm not afraid. There we go. Alright. Awesome. On to the next way that you can improve your play. Okay, so for this one, we're gonna load up my level Reincarnation 8, and I'm just gonna show you what it would be like for me. Now, aim is one of the things that I struggle with, so this is gonna be focused on aiming. All right, we'll take this. Yeah. We're not gonna take this just because this is a learning exercise. Let's see if we can find a good weapon. We want to have a weapon that is not super strong. Okay, perfect. So the idea here is the goal is to improve our aim. So we want to use a weapon that's not very good, and we want to really, really try to get as many only headshots as possible. And once again, we don't want to waste our essence. So, you know, if we make a silly mistake like that because we're not really paying attention, then we just quit. We can go again. No problem. This is a learning experience, so winning or losing isn't really an issue. And to be clear, when we first looked at this, at the very beginning of this video, all those cat losses were actual attempts at something I'm working on right now. So they were not practice runs. So here, I don't want to pick laser gloves because I really can't guarantee all headshots. Illusion, I can't either. Prism is perfect. Slow rate of fire really forces you to aim with every shot, and that's what I'm looking to do. I'm just looking to try to get headshots every single time. And just really nice and slow. And see, that was a miss. So I feel punished. Like I feel bad about that. Nice. Okay. And so here again, the goal is to we're breaking down the game into its components. Movement is a single component. So when in our previous exercise, we really focused on movement, and that was the essential thing. So here we're really focusing on aiming and taking that extra second before we shoot someone to try to guarantee that that we hit and that it's a critical shot. So we have to slow down a lot to do this. But this means that the more that we do this, the better our average shot gets. Because we're not just, you know, aiming and holding down the fire button. We can start doing that once we've built up enough ability to actually land those headshots more consistently. And so here you're going to see a more difficult room. Oh, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. And honestly, your Foundry is perfect for this. Your Foundry does decent enough damage. In fact, I feel like it was doing more damage than this Prism was doing. Partly that's because of the corrosion damage. But another thing that, so I would say that this is sort of like a level 2 exercise, and I think that's because it sort of builds on the movement. As you can see, I'm doing this in R8, so for me this is quite a bit challenging, and you're seeing that I'm having to use all of that movement stuff that I was just using to be able to effectively perform this thing. Now, in a lower difficulty, this is not going to be as challenging. Your movement skills will be more commensurate. They'll be more in line with your aiming skills and what is being demanded of you from the difficulty. But as you can see here, this is an effective way for me to learn, and something that I do every once in a while. When I'm, especially if I have like a bad run, where I feel like aim was what eventually caused me to lose, I might do one of these. Just to really try to improve over time. I'm not going to run 10 of these in a row, but I might do 1 or 2 over the course of a month, maybe even 3 or 4 depending on how I'm feeling and how much I want to work on my play as opposed to just play. Alright? And so I would say that most of these runs don't get too far out of the level 1 stage. So what I'll usually do is I'll switch to some more powerful strategy after I feel like I'm not getting much more out of the particular act that I'm in. So once I'm out of Long Wing Tomb, I would do the same thing in Angsty Desert. The tough thing about this exercise is you kind of need a weapon that's at just the right damage and just the right type of weapon. Like a Scorching Rounds that's like pretty decent. Is like a great weapon to take into the Angsty Desert to continue on with this challenge. The Foundry tends not to hold up as well as you go into the Angsty Desert, and it can become quite a slog to kill all the enemies. So one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you need to be doing enough damage to sort of keep this pace going. We don't want to. The goal isn't to, you know, spend forever on every single room killing everyone. It's to practice our aim in a meaningful way against enemies that at least somewhat replicates the natural way that we would be performing shots in the game. And to take that extra time to really try to guarantee as many headshots as we can. And so once again, don't want to waste my essence here. In fact, I'll probably overall gain essence from these, even though it's very, very low. But this is another very effective tool. This will improve your aim. And one thing that I do, and you may have seen in my previous games, is almost my first run every single day. If I'm gonna play some runs of Gunfire Reborn, the very first run of the day, or if I had a bad run where aim got me, is I will aim at these little mushrooms. I assume that, yeah, they're definitely mushrooms. And I can't imagine that there's any other reason that these would be added here, except for little things to aim at. And so one thing that's happening here is I'll be shooting, dash, shoot, dash. So you incorporate that dash into your shooting pattern, and you'll notice that my tracking is pretty good, even with a dash. Right there, that's pretty good. And that comes with just a lot of practice, you know. When I first started playing and I dashed, you'd see that kind of stuff, you know, how I would just drag and then it would come snap back. And you'll notice as you do this, you know, when you're setting up your runs, that over time you will get better. And you can notice it here. I know what I looked like when I first started doing this type of stuff, and it was not good. All right, on to the next exercise. Okay, the last exercise, take this off, is not something that we can really perform. Okay, this is information that is, oh, excuse me. This is information that is sort of outside of a specific run. Doing damage and doing good damage comes from understanding at a base level how damage is calculated in the game. But there are a few major points that we can keep in mind that are going to help us do good damage and take a lot of the finicky small stuff out of it. Let's say big picture, how are we going to do good damage? I think that most people, I think some people are going to think, well, I have to have this battle tree maxed out. You know, here's where I get my weapon damage, my lucky shot, my weapon crit X. You know, all of this does add damage, but It's actually not that important, especially in the lower difficulties, for you to have this tree maxed out for you to do a lot of damage. A lot of damage comes from knowing what's strong, okay? So the first thing that I would really strongly suggest that you do is take a moment to look at a tier list of weapons, make note of some of the ones that are in the top and use those weapons, okay? If you're looking to improve, I think that newer players get trapped in this idea, especially smart players. Smart players are the worst about this, that they believe that they have some unique perspective, and this really can debilitate their progress in learning a game. You're as a new player, you have to recognize that a lot of stuff has already been figured out, and just because it's not immediately obvious to you, just because you don't intuit why something is good, doesn't mean that your opinion or thought or intuition about it is very valid. If when I'm learning something, I make intuitions, I make assumptions, but I don't give them a lot of credit. I think I challenge. In fact, this happens to me a lot at work, and my work is relatively challenging, where I will come to my boss with something that I think is true, and hoping that he will, in giving him the opportunity to challenge my assumption. I don't go to my boss saying like, oh, this is going to be true because I'm so smart and I have this unique perspective, and like, how has no one thought about this? People who've been working here 15 years haven't thought about this? What are you guys so dumb? I come in, I look, I see a problem, and I'm like, these people have worked here 15 years. Why is this, why is this like this and not like this? So I go to my boss and I'm like, hey, why is this like this and not like this? I'm curious. I'm not saying like, I don't hide it. I don't cloister it up inside of me and like just think it. I go and I challenge that assumption. So what I am challenging you to do is to go out, find some information about the game, and don't follow it to a T necessarily, but like imbibe some of what is the most powerful weapons in the game. I'm going to pause real quick. So I would say that one thing that would be really important is to at whatever point you're at with I would go in and look at a tier list and look at the weapons that you already have unlocked and make note of the ones that are highly rated and actually, try to pick those up and use those in your next runs. Weapons that are easy to unlock and get unlocked early in the game are stuff like Lightning Blast, an incredibly powerful miasma applicator. Angelic Aura is like one of the highest DPS weapons of the game, very easy to get early on. The Scorching Rounds is unlocked by default and totally serviceable, especially on the cat. I right-clicked that and that made a lot of noise. Aura of Venom, also very easy to unlock early and incredibly powerful. Illusion is one of the best weapons in the game, and all you have to do is kill the first boss one time. Thunderclap Gloves, I think, is also quite easy. Does it say how to unlock it? No, it does not. But the list goes on and on. Knowing which weapons are actually strong is going to take a lot of the guesswork out of doing enough damage. And then because you're no longer thinking about like, well, I have to have this unique experience and I'm going to figure out what the best thing is my own way, but that's going to require a huge amount of work to do, and you're probably going to be wrong. Not always, but the reason I say that so confidently is because the tier lists that are currently out are a collective effort between a huge amount of high skill players. Especially like the ones that I do, and Dr. Pixel has a really great one, great tier list that's a lot shorter than mine. These are a product of a lot of thought about the game and people building on top of each other. To think that you, unless you're willing to dedicate a amount of time that is so far above what has been already dedicated, or that you are just so intelligent that you can surpass like a collective effort like that, is a little bit silly. So I would really highly suggest, if you're looking to improve and you're feeling stuck, go look at one of these weapon tier lists, match it up to the weapons that you have already unlocked, and then try to use some of those weapons and let another person's suggestion affect your experience, and you'll find that you'll start doing a lot more damage. Beyond that, damage, I'd say the next biggest step in making sure you're doing enough damage is just going for the right Gemini on the right weapon, and then probably finding weapons with good inscriptions. And those are a bit tougher to figure out. I have done quite a few videos that go in like a deeper dive into specific weapon classes like shotguns, launchers, that type of stuff. That very well may be helpful because that indicates which inscriptions are actually strong. But I think that's a little bit too detailed for what I'm trying to go for in this one. So the third exercise is go look at a tier list, match it up with the weapons that you have, and try to use weapons that are strong, and get a sense of why that's the case. Okay, get a sense of why those are being so highly rated, and challenge your assumptions about some of the weapons that you think are the strongest, especially if they're low rated. If you think Big Hippo and Cavalry and Talisman are like the strongest weapons in the game, there's something missing that you're not quite getting, and your only way you're going to recognize that is by expanding out from your assumption. And luckily, there are other people's assertions and beliefs out there for you to consume and test your metal with. So I think that covers everything I wanted to show. Hopefully that's helpful. We've got 2 exercises you can perform in the game that are going to improve your mobility and your aiming. And then we've got 1 exercise that happens outside of the game in which you are making a mental note of what you're trying to look for to improve your damage at a base level. And this is just going to be massively effective at significantly increasing your ability to get into the higher levels of reincarnation. This foundation is so impactful that if you become good at aiming, at movement, and at even just picking weapons that are strong and knowing like what to Gemini with them, you already have a great basis on beating Reincarnation 8, just with those 4 things. The truth about this game is that there's not a huge amount of high skill fine-tuning that's really required of you to actually make a massive impact. So if we can cover the basics really, really well, that is enough to get into these super high rank difficulties. So I hope this was helpful. Best of luck in your next runs, and I will see you next time.